A month has lapsed since the humanitarian truce was declared between the government of Ethiopia and the government of Tigray, yet no meaningful humanitarian assistance has reached in the hands of the much-awaiting people of Tigray. The trickling aid getting into Tigray is almost negligible compared to the amount of humanitarian assistance required. IDPs sheltering in Malala Sawakare camp say that even though it's been almost 2 months since they came here, they're still struggling to get a daily meal. Adhanu was resident of Adebai, a small town in western Tigray. On the 4th of November, he and several others were abducted from Tigrai church in their village by Fano vigilante group. He says that horrendous crimes have been committed upon them for months.
Exactly on the 4th of November, I and several others were abducted from Tigrai church in Adebai. The beating and the killings of that day were so terrifying. It's so hard to put it in words. While we were there, they had already taken everything we owned, including our money, livestock, everything. After we were detained in a warehouse, we were constantly beaten and tortured. Because of the intensity of the beating, we lost 6 men. When we tried to bury them, they had beaten us too. So we left them unburied. On the 30th of November, they chose few elderly detainees and released us.
Jordano's Futsum's husband and her 4 brothers were also abducted the same day, from the same place and by the same group. She says that they were then put into a warehouse nearby, she and her remaining family members, left on the 15th of November with nothing but a clothes on their backs. I was resident of Satit Humara. At the start of the conflict, I fled to Adebai because my family used to live there. But the Fano vigilante group didn't let us live in peace there. They would come to our houses day and night, asking for money and our gold jewelries. When they didn't find any, they would beat us, saying we had hid it somewhere. Everyone here has been beaten at least once. After they detained my brothers and my husband, we left on the 15th of November, leaving everything behind, as we had no choice. The IDPs say that after leaving their homes with nothing, they went to Hizat's IDP camp and suffered due to lack of basic necessities. Hoping that things might be better in here, they came to Malala about 2 months ago. They say that they're still struggling to find daily meal as aid getting into Tigray isn't nearly enough. With her husband and her son still detained back in Adebai, Zimam Adana came here with her elderly father who has a sight problem and her father-in-law. She says that during her first weeks in an IDP camp, her elderly father-in-law passed away because he was already weak from lack of food. My
husband and my firstborn son are detained back there. I left with my elderly father with a sight problem and my father-in-law for Hizat's IDP camp. We were unable to find food there, and we had elderly and children with us. So hopeful that things might be better here, we came to Malala. During the first weeks of us getting here, I lost my father-in-law, as he was already weakened by lack of food. Now I have nothing to feed my children. We need the international community to see us as we are suffering.
We have nothing to eat. We are sleeping on the floor. I haven't even washed this blanket once as I have no soap.
The few internally displaced persons who were lucky enough to receive aid say that it isn't enough and that there are many left without any kind of aid.
Only few of us got a meager aid. The people here are in thousands. There are so many left with no aid. So we call on aid agencies to get more aid into Tigray.
We thank the aid we received, however very small in amount. Yet we need more life-saving aid, as we have several brothers and sisters who didn't get any. So I would like to say to the international community and aid agencies, please help us. We call for the blockade to be lifted and aid to be allowed in a meaningful amount, and now. Since the start of the blockade, only less than 6% of much-needed aid has arrived in Tigray.